we were moving to a new town. We had no pre-existing reputation. Kids were starting new schools, business and personal life. It was so much. The first 6 months were like, my whole head was like...
Welcome back to another episode of the Dental Practice Launch Podcast, episode 76, and a very special episode, if I might add, because today we have the 1-year follow-up to the Voorhees Pediatric Dentistry startup opening story. Dan Dinowitz and his wife, Michelle Dinowitz, are back on the podcast after a year of running a business, running a practice, growing a practice. So Dan, Michelle, thank you so much for being back here. I know this is an anticipated episode. You both are alive, so that's a good sign, right?
Thank you. Thanks, Shane.
Yeah. It's good to be alive and thriving. And we're so excited for this. I miss podcasting with you. I really did.
We were talking about that. It was like, man, we were doing, we did 10 episodes for those who are newer listeners to this and didn't catch the series. And if you didn't, I highly recommend go back into the previous episodes. We literally have 10 different, points or episodes that we broke down, episode 1 through 10, where we basically went through, Dan's startup journey from his branding and logo to, the touring the space to, pre-launch to post-launch there after that first kind of week of opening. Go back, check it out. It's a great series that gives you kind of all the ins and outs of opening a practice. But yeah, a year later, here we are. Your pediatric practice, which is, Voorhees Pediatric Dentistry in New Jersey, in Voorhees, New Jersey, was a very unique practice in many ways that people were really interested in hearing about, because you all did something that so many people, I think, dream of, which is opening a startup, but doing it while going pretty much, out of network with insurances and not relying on that. Some may say that's a risky move. I know some people may have tried to talk you out of that, at times as well. So we're definitely going to dive into the nitty gritty of some of that here in a bit. But just to kind of kick things off, I mean, what's this last, 12, 13, 14 months been like for you guys?
Yeah, well, so we've been open, about 14 months. But it's been like a 2.5 year journey since we've had our first conversation. And I'm sure this has been said a million times, but truly a roller coaster learning about business, team management. We really decided that we wanted to do things the hardest way possible, because we were moving to a new town. We had no pre-existing reputation. Kids were starting new schools. So business and personal life, it was so much. I over the past year, I've learned to be more authentic and real in my marketing and social media, because I think that really resonates. And it has the first 6 months were like, my whole head was like, so now, we're really settled into this business ownership life, and not that it's easier. We're more used to it and able to roll with, a lot of the things that come our way.
Yeah. And Michelle, what's it been like, for you as well? I mean, being, such an important part of this practice, and also, managing the family along with, Dan and all the change that went through. I mean, what was that like for you on your end?
Very interesting, not boring. It was, in the beginning, it was really, really hard. Like, I won't sugarcoat it or anything. It was very emotionally difficult because, as you said, we were coming into a place we had no reputation. It was also new to have a team now. It was just totally different. So a lot of growing pains. And, also with the out of network piece, there's a lot of no's, that come from that in the beginning. And it's kind of always second guessing yourself, like, are we doing the right thing? Are we doing the right thing? Like, just trusting in what we're doing and saying, no, it just takes time. It takes time. So
one of the things Michelle always said to me in the first 6 months was, think about Dan from a year from now, and what he'd think of you, right now, in those like hard moments. And there's still hard moments, but there's less of them. And Dan right now wants to go back to that Dan, in the first comment. Give him a hug. Like, just your vision is good.
yeah.
The delivery is going to take some time, and just stick to it. Be flexible. Things are going to evolve, but it's going to work out.
And just like also, on my end, just figuring out, as far as also having kids at home and figuring out exactly how do I fit into this business. I want to be involved, and realizing as time was going on how much I really, really did want to be involved and help out, but just trying to figure out what that looks like for me. So it's been a process.
Yeah.
But it's been
Well,
but
and I think what you're saying is so real, and this is why we're doing this, and we talk to startups who've been open for at least a year, because it's not all roses and beautiful times and things that you see on social media, right? And yes, there are those beautiful high moments, and hopefully it makes everything worth it, but you're going to have those struggles, and especially at the beginning. I mean, you all touched on it, but being brand new, you guys weren't from South Jersey, or you moved literally from kind of North Jersey and that area, and building a house, raising kids, which, by the way, you both are amazing parents, and I think that needs to be said as well. You're very present parents and things too, which is very important. But you go into this new community, no Google reviews, right? Not a network with the insurances. I mean, it is a challenge. But what I want to know is, at what point did you start to maybe hear less of those no's, because the reputation piece did start to build? And we know reputation, it's a relationship, right? Relationships take time, but you guys have crossed, I feel like, that barrier. Do you remember around when that was?
Yeah, absolutely. There were definitely a few, like threshold breaking points that I remember clearly. So, first, one of the best things that we ever could have done together, with Crimson, was building that new patient lead list, starting months prior to opening. And so that helped me at least to have, a few patients a day. A good day in the first summer was like 3 or 4 patients a day. When I had 4 patients a day, I was like, yeah, Michelle, it's awesome. And, so legitimately. And we also went into the summer. We opened up going into the summer, so that gave us a little edge, because that's a busy time in pediatrics. Then September and October came around. In dentistry, September is known as Sucktember, because everyone's back at their jobs, at their school. It just naturally, it's harder for people to get into the office. So when things settle in there, then you kind of come off that high. But having that initial momentum from the new patient list, grand opening list, did help me, I think, cross certain thresholds quicker. So month 6 was a big deal. There's something in dentistry called a recall cycle. So every 6 months, kids are due for a checkup. So at month 6, we finally weren't just scrapping for new families. We were also now getting our first families who signed on with us to come back. So that was awesome. And so that kind of set a new production ceiling starting in about like January. Then another huge boost was around April. when we partnered with a Instagram mom influencer account, and that was like really happened at the right time. I don't think I would have wanted to do it sooner because we probably weren't ready to accept that patient volume. But like by month 9, we were like, a lot of cool things happened. So we worked with this Instagram influencer, got the word out. This video had like 100,000 views. It ended up getting us a ton of new patients, and it helped us cross some thresholds with production as well.
I want to stop on that note there for just a second, then I'll circle back around. How did this Instagram influencer partnership come about? Did you find this person and reach out to them? Did they reach out to you? Really, like, how did you make that happen for those who maybe want to try doing something like that in their, local community?
Yeah. So while I was building my Instagram account, I had been following a lot of local businesses, and then kind of just organically finding these types of pages that exist in a lot of different towns and states. And this particular one was a mom who found events in South Jersey for kids. Usually their thing was like,
new playgrounds and a new play space.
Right. New play space is opening, great events for families. And we thought, well, they have a great following. I think we kind of fit into their brand. We do something different. We're not just a dental office. We're like a whole experience, which we could touch on later. So we reached out. It took a few months for us to figure out what we'd do with her, but it was the best ROI that I've ever seen. We got like 50 new patients out of that, and still more, coming every week. Yeah.
So we'll, on that specific side of the marketing piece, because that is something that's still kind of new, right? It's like influencers have been around in social media, but I feel like now, as far as like local influencers and local businesses being able to, leverage those networks, it's still something that is not very common. And so will you be doing more of those, with maybe this person in the future or with other, influencers, and just kind of what's your plans for the future now that you've seen such a positive return on that investment?
Yeah, I definitely want to do this again with the same account, but also similar different influencers in the area, because there are pockets of South Jersey and the greater Philadelphia metropolitan area that we haven't quite tapped into yet. Really, the only limiting factor, it's not time. Like, I can do these. It's cost. Some of them are affordable. Some of them are quite a bit more expensive, and it's not to take away from their value, because they some of them have a crazy high following, and with that comes a higher price tag. So I have to take very seriously the balance of what these things cost, because I do have a business and overhead to run, but also we're still in that investing phase.
But also we have to think about where these local influencers are, and are the people who see these on like a certain account, if it's more for a certain area, would they come out to us? So I look at it, it's kind of like a gamble doing something like that. This one was more just like completely South Jersey, but some of the other ones that we're looking into, we have to consider, okay, is it going to be worth that investment? But with that first one, it was crazy. Like the next day, even just the next day, we called and calls and calls and calls. And it was almost scary because we weren't necessarily equipped to handle that. But that was definitely a huge...
Right.
Yeah.
We wish we would have been more prepared for that week, and perhaps not even scheduled patients, because we needed that phone time. And
we weren't really sure what to expect. So it was really great. Yeah. It was really great. And just as far as the 6-month mark goes, I remember we were speaking to one of our friends who also has a practice, and he would just say in the beginning, oh, just wait, just get to the 6-month mark. Just get to the 6-month mark. That's gonna, then you're gonna be able to really see. So that's something that we were always kind of waiting. Oh, we want to get to 6 months. And it is true. It did make a difference.
The
Yeah,
recall.
that's why I always say you got to get through the first 6 months there, because when you start getting that recare and whatnot, that makes life so much easier. And I mean, with something like that too, I think that's a good point with like, just before you're gonna go out and try to build a relationship with an influencer and do business with that person, you also need to look, like you mentioned, where is their audience? How many of those followers are located in your area? How many of those followers are bots? You know what I mean? Like there are like a lot of those kind of things you got to consider. I think that's a good point. And then going back too, because like leading up to that 6 months, and again, being a totally out of network pediatric office as a startup practice, in that first kind of month, 2 months when things are difficult, right? Things are challenging and you don't have all the social proof and things, Google reviews and whatnot. Was there a point for, I don't know, either of you, both of you, where you said, okay, if by this time, if we really don't see things pick up, we're going to need to go and network with an insurance? Did that conversation ever happen?
Yeah, but not like, not like it never got to the point of like, all right, we're gonna have to do it. It was just kind of like trying to figure out what, like, when would we have to have that serious conversation? And we, you had a
no. I was just thinking
6 months.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this the other day, actually. How I remember we put with our the woman who works at our front desk. She's amazing, and I remember we put a date on the calendar. Do you remember?
March 1st.
Was it March 1st? And that was going to be like kind of the day where we start to, like just stuff.
We were going to look at reports and be like, are we heading in the right direction or not?
Yeah, and that was kind of a day that we were looking at. And it was interesting because, I mean, this could come up later, but with marketing, one thing that I found, because we do events and all these things, and you do these events, and then you're like, oh, well, everybody's going to be calling the next day. But you realize, no, it's not. Like, I would say to Dan, not everyone has to go to the dentist tomorrow is like the thing. And so they might see it, and it might take them a year, or it might take them 9 months. Maybe their kid just went to the dentist. Maybe they still like their dentist, but it's like, it's hard when you put so much forth and then you don't see it right away. So the cool thing about the influencer was I guess because of just sheer volume, it came right away. So it's interesting.
Yeah. And then there's also, what you touched on with just time. Time is your friend. Social media is obviously a big part of my strategy, but it's not the only thing. We do a lot of community events, visiting offices, general dentists, networking, going to dental meetings. And, I so badly want to network with general dental offices that, I figured out over time, like, I need to focus my time on visiting offices that have similar philosophies and patient bases, because they're kind of pre-screened for like, that they'd be, cool with coming to my office and the way that we operate things. And there were like certain offices that I really wanted to, get referrals from. I visited like a year ago and everyone was friendly. But then, life is busy, but like things don't happen on the first contact.
Yeah.
And then like 9 months later, then all of a sudden I start seeing like, second opinions and emergencies being sent over by docs from certain practices. It is just so much of putting a seed here, putting a seed here, putting a seed there. And I don't want to say trust the system. I want more like continue to water that seed and, and be patient. You gotta take care of the plants, over the year. And then one day they'll be the tree. And then now some of them are starting to show. But like, not everybody needs a dentist right now. Like Michelle
and we forget,
said.
and that's an important point that you bring up. We forget that when we, are siloed inside of dentistry, right? As we think, oh yeah, people should be excited because they saw us at this event. They should be lining up at the door, next week. But it's like Michelle said there, it's not that way. And I always, tell people the biggest piece of advice, I can give you, whether or not you're, an in-network, out-of-network, whatever the case is, it's like, get used to delayed gratification. And we live in a world today where we don't like that because everything is at our fingertips now, constantly, right? We're used to being able to access information, get those dopamine hits, whenever we want. So it's really, I think, a skill to be able to do exactly what you guys were talking about, which is plant those seeds, water them, nurture them, and then have the patience to let those, turn into, fruitful relationships down the road. And the other analogy I always like to use too is like marketing and growth in business, but especially marketing in the way that you all do it, which is the way that Crimson Media also agrees with, which is that relationship-based strategy. It's not the cheapest, exam, cleaning, x-ray. That's a strategy, and that's totally fine. Obviously, the type of patients you all wanted to go for, that wasn't what you wanted people to value. So that relationship-based marketing should be like almost, if you're going to invest in the S&P 500, stock market, it's like, if you look at your investment every single day, you'll go crazy because it's going to go up and you'll have great days. It's going to go down. You're going to have bad days. But if you zoom out 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, you should see exactly what you all are seeing now, growth over that time period. Then it puts things in perspective. So I think that's really, really cool that you all have, noticed that. And I think that's kind of like a little bit of a superpower for business owners, because a lot of people aren't that way.
It's like a muscle, you have to start work it out and just get used to that, because it really is. Yeah, what you said about is not the delayed gratification. It's so true. Yeah. And sometimes you don't know. You'll just go and think, no one's calling me from this event, but then they do. And we see things even from, because we go around to schools and things like that. And then you'll just see much later, people call a person here, a person there. So it definitely is a skill.
Yeah. And dentists, it's not just patients, you all do it too, because how many people I've had reach out to me where like, hey, I saw you at, such and such conference 2 years ago. Do you remember that? It's like, I'm ready to finally, do some marketing. And I'm like looking back at my notes and stuff in our CRM. I'm like, when was that? So everybody does it, right? It's just a matter of when, but plant that seed, be the first in mind when it comes up. And, with the marketing side of it too, because I know that's something people are really interested in. You all have done such a wonderful job with this, because, yes, as our company Crimson Media has been your marketing partner, we're super, honored to do that. But it's like, yes, you have the search presence, in Google, which, by the way, you guys are dominating, search rankings, which is cool. And you've stuck to it. You've got ads running, right? Facebook, Instagram ads, you've got some Google ads and things like that. But I always tell people, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. It's just, what if Google crashed tomorrow and all your eggs are in Google? God forbid that were to happen. That would, spin me into a tizzy there. But, that's what I mean. And you all have done so good about, yes, you let the online marketing, do its thing, build its momentum. Of course, meeting with, our team, shout out Laura, every single month and going through and tweaking things. And we'll definitely talk about Laura here in this. But then you also said, hey, we're going to, produce great, fun content on social media. We're going to go to the events. We're going to, do all these things. How would you divide up, if we had a pie chart, right? Your time when it comes to different marketing channels, whether that's in-person events, referral, meetings, posting stuff on social media, what's that breakdown roughly been like? And what have you found that's been maybe kind of a good, result for you all after learning?
Yeah. So, obviously it's a multi-tactic strategy. So a little bit of everything all kind of piles up, but there's a lot of hours I'm caught going like this on the couch by liking and respond like that. That definitely sucks the most time from me, and I like it. Doing social media and making fun things, but that's a big time sucker, because that part never ends. And when are people most active on social media? Not when they're not in work, in the evening after the kids go to sleep. So I am definitely guilty of overdoing it in the evening, and I sometimes need to keep that in check, especially when taking into account my own family time. We spent a lot of time in the first year doing tabling events, which I'm still doing, but less of. Just different things work well in different communities. It's also hard to track who comes from tabling events. Nobody says very few people say I met you at so-and-so event. They meet you there, they heard your brand, and then they see your social media ad, and then they say, oh, I saw you on Google. So, but we spent a lot of time doing that, which I'm going to do a little less of this year, but still do it. We did a lot of Tooth Fairy story time, which was our mainstay thing this year. I recently tallied up everything in a Excel spreadsheet. We visited and interacted with 2,000 children in the Voorhees, Cherry Hill, Marlton area over the past year. Yeah. So I actually kept the track of how many
through the story time.
Through story time alone. I tracked because I was able to track how many goodie bags we needed to make, and yeah, it was like 2,000, give or take 5. Like it was literally that. And now that's also a big time investment, which in the past year I was doing. We're open Monday through Thursdays. I was doing during working days. Now that the schedule is filling up, we do it on our admin day, Friday. But that usually is kind of like a 3-hour ordeal plus the hour that it takes to go back and forth on emails to schedule it. But some of those have proven to be very helpful.
Also, sponsorships. We've been starting to do more of that, and it's interesting because people ask, and you're like, is it like that's one of the things where you're like, oh, how will I know if this works? And it's tough, but
we get a lot of people like emailing us like, oh, would you like to sponsor so and so? But right, we have to like in a kind way we have a budget, right? We
it's hard not to want to say yes to everything because you don't want to disappoint people, and like, oh, nothing, like, sure, it can't hurt, but sometimes it's just we really can't afford to do every single one. But we have picked several for this year, and again, I think it's, what is it? I mean, you'll obviously know this better than me. What is it? The 7 points? Is it 7 points of touch, or what is it?
Yeah. 7 touch points before a decision.
Yeah. I guess we really look at it like that. It's like people just keep seeing us, and we know, that these things will one day be worth it, even if it's not right away. So that's definitely started to be another thing that we're doing.
Yeah, and picking events that are more likely to find the patients who are actually wanting to come to us, and where we're going to interact with with people and have those meaningful connections. Yeah,
we didn't give you percentages or any. I don't know if we answered your question. We just kind of listed a bunch of things.
No, but that's important because again, it's about those multi-touch points that you bring up, and then I think it's important as well to kind of tie that to your visibility and what Dan mentioned earlier. It's like people see you at an event, right? And then they see your ad on Facebook if you're continuously everywhere. And then they went to Google and then probably looked at your reviews and then called, and Google was like the last, contact point. So there's 3 different, touch points there that happened. And that goes back to the point of diversify your marketing. Just because if you don't see that I had, you had 40 direct calls from a Facebook ad over the last 30 days, doesn't mean that the Facebook ad's not working, right? It's like, it's a nurturing, process there. And I guess my question then to you all would be, how important do you think then that online piece has been to all of the community, sponsorships, ground marketing, things that you've done, and vice versa? Because I mean, I'm just going to shout you guys out right now. As we're recording this, which we're recording this early September 2025, you all have 188 5-star reviews, on Google, which is amazing. You're really close to that 200 number. That carries a lot of weight. And then just your Google and social media presence in general. But I guess my question then goes back to, how important has that been, do you feel like, with everything that you do from the ground marketing, how the online marketing piece kind of has, solidified and backed it up too?
Yeah, the online marketing, in my opinion, closes the deal. They may have heard of us through other things, and then when you see the ads, you actually see like a dental office should have nothing to hide. And I very purposely design my ads to show the experience that they're going to get, because I know, like, I'll toot our own horn for a moment. Like, I know that we've created an experience that is exceptional. I know we have amazing customer service. Our team is wonderful. Shout out to Ingrid and Trista.
Shout out to Dan. Hey, and also you're not too shabby yourself.
No, and we've learned over the past year, like, different amazing skill sets that our employees have had that have contributed towards this, and we always have we try to have like quarterly brainstorming meetings about like what we can do. Oh gosh, what was the question?
Well, it was just about how the online marketing and the ground marketing and community marketing work together and solidify the deal you had mentioned.
Yes. So for potential patients to see our online marketing, then shows us like, oh, we're actually the real deal. And we
also I'm thinking back to earlier with Laura, like starting the Google ads, and I remember she would just be like, oh, be patient, it takes a little time for it to kick in. And it's so hard when you're kind of in this moment of, I can't think of a better word than desperation. Like in the beginning, when you're just desperate for people to come in the door and you're like, we're putting these ads out, we're doing this. And I just remember her being like, no, like it takes time. And I totally get it now from like all aspects of marketing, all that we're doing, and that it really, she's like, oh, we expect that this will start kicking in soon. And it is, a lot of people will say that they found us on Google, and then we've even had people who will say, oh, I wasn't sure because of out of network, but then I saw your reviews. Or
I want to say something I'm super proud of, and it is not just our reviews and the quantity of them, but like the quality of the reviews and like the content of them. Like, our reviews kick ass. They
do.
Every review, and for people listening, like, we do not, we don't tell them like write this, right? No, we send out an automatic text, at a strategic time, right after dinner time, and we say, please write an honest review of your experience. And like every review tells a story. It's like 2 or 3 paragraphs, like on almost every review, about like, from the moment I walked in, I was greeted as so-and-so, and I couldn't believe how they treated, my child and me. And, they were so thorough, and, nobody's ever taken the time. And I'm very, very proud of that. And I think like in our strategy going forward into year 2, I think we need to emphasize that, the response. Yeah.
And to your point too, about the quality of reviews, and this is something, I think really if you design an experience, right, and you really make that patient experience just out of this world, kind of one of a kind, you're going to naturally get that. Because I was, at the time, just kind of like scrolling through. I'll be honest with you, I can't find one review that doesn't have like a huge paragraph typed with it. Like, I don't see one where there's just like, they left a 5-star and they didn't put anything with it. And that says something. And people are posting pictures, right, of their kids in front of that switchboard thing, which, by the way, that had to be a great investment, I think, because that's like a staple. Go back and listen to some of the episodes where, he was going through and buying those. But you're absolutely right. And you all should be super proud of that. And it again just goes back to experience. You provide the right experience, you focus on the right things. I'm the believer that karma will work its way back for you, and positive and positivity there. And the other piece there I want to mention, just that Dan's done an exceptional job, and Michelle as well, is just showing each of your personalities. I think too many times, not just in the practice, but in the marketing and the messaging, social media, we feel like we have to have this kind of like, I don't know, buttoned up act that we have to put on, right? But when you actually show like who you are, that's what parents want, especially for their kids, or even if you're a GP, it's like people want authenticity today. And I think that's just been such a powerful thing. And it sounds like you have, just from watching your content, I thought you've always been authentic, but you mentioned you've kind of found your own I guess, voice probably through this time. And does that just come with maybe repeating and comfort? And I don't know.
Yeah, it comes from time and like if you look at my like very first video or two on my page, it's hilarious. Like I think I mentioned this in a past episode, but it takes time. And then also I will say watching other accounts, like I have some like really favorite like dental accounts where I'm like, oh my god, that guy's hilarious, and he's just being a total dude. Like you can tell like this is the guy that you get when you meet him in person. So like I was like, I'm gonna just start like, I'm gonna stop editing so much and worrying about making the perfect video and just kind of start talking into the camera, talking, giving educational tips, sometimes telling a joke, sometimes being stupid. And like, I'm just going to put it out there. And that has also taken a little bit off my plate, not worrying about looking like you said, the buttoned up, perfectly polished person. And just wanted to throw in a shout out for Ideal Practices for a moment, my consultants that helped me start up. Because of the reviews, what we spoke about before, very first thing we did was write the ideal patient review. You write like, what do you want your, at the end of your career, what do you want like this like 2-page amazing review to look like? And they said, write what you want parents to say about your practice. This was like 18 months before I opened. And now my reviews are literally like reading as if I wrote them, which is wild to state. Like, so shout out to Ideal Practices, Stephen Trotter, Stacey Peters, and the whole amazing crew there.
Man, that's awesome. That's an awesome feeling. And also kind of goes back to, I'm forgetting like the name for it now, but it's kind of like, you visualize things coming to reality. They say like, think of the things, the person you want to become, the family member, the dad you want to become or whatever. And it's like, eventually, if you see yourself that way, you will become that. And it's like, when you plot that review out, it's like, this is, my guiding light, right? My North Star. And then now here you are seeing that. One question I have to ask, you all have done a really good job with this. And this is something that I think is a huge struggle. I know it's a struggle with people I talk with, clients of ours and non-clients, but being an out-of-network office, you get it, right? It's phone rings. Yep. Thank you for calling Voorhees Pediatric Dentistry. How can we help you or whatever you say? Hey, I want to book an appointment for my 2 kids. I've got Delta Dental. Do you take my insurance? How in the world do you all overcome that? And we get it. Some people, if you're out of network, they're not going to come. But I feel like you all do a really good job of still getting a lot of those patients who do have, in-network, insurances to still schedule, even though you're an out-of-network provider. What do you do there? How have you trained your team? What's the process? And just would love to hear that, because people, I think, are desperate to know, like, what are other offices doing where it's working?
This could be a whole podcast in itself. Not just a
Maybe
whole
we'll
episode,
do a part 2.
a whole, 10-part series. How do you handle being an out-of-network office? And am I the expert right now? No, but we've gotten a lot better at it. So the first challenge when opening up was just getting the phones to ring. Once we started getting the phones to ring more, then it was, how do we actually get them to come in knowing that we accept insurance, but we are out of network. So the challenge was and always will be messaging. How do we get parents to understand that we do accept dental insurance and we accept their out-of-network benefits, and why that still makes sense for most people, and why it's still affordable for most people, and why we are worth it to sometimes pay a little bit extra for our experience. So that part of it took a lot of time. I'd like to say, you said, how did you train your staff? Like, there was a lot of troubleshooting with each other. Michelle and I came to the table with some ideas. My employees, had a lot of great ideas on wording. I spoke to a lot of friends who did similar kind of things. And so just testing different scripts for our team to say on the phone took time and to build that confidence, because as a human, our team, we're on one side of the phone, and yes, we're trying to build a business and we're trying to get patients to come in. And also as a human, we understand people all have their financial priorities, and some have different priorities than others. So we understand if someone's, copay at another office was like literally zero, and now all of a sudden they might have to pay $30 or $50 for a visit. I think you can talk about the script a little bit.
Okay, so I just want to say that Trista and Ingrid, they answer most of the phone calls, but I am in some days and I do answer calls, and it can be intimidating when you're getting to that part. So usually how it goes is it's always a little bit different, and it's okay if you realize when is the best time to kind of start explaining this. But once we kind of get them on the phone and we're talking to them, eventually when they say they want to book, we'll say, do you plan on using any dental benefits for the visit? And if they say yes, then we'll say, oh, okay, great. What kind of dental insurance do you have? And then once they tell us, usually we say something like, okay, as long as it's as long as it's a PPO plan, we are able to work with your insurance. However, and a lot of times we'll say Dr. Dan decided not to contract with the insurance companies because this way he's able to practice, completely unrestricted. He's able to get the highest, quality tools and materials. He's able to really spend time with each new patient. And, we also provide a lot of, now we've kind of started saying sometimes, give them a real VIP experience. And so we'll say, we'll explain how it will work. So we'll say we can utilize your benefits. So what will happen is we can provide you an estimate of what your out-of-pocket cost will be. And then we file the claim for you. You don't have to do anything on your part. We file it for you. And then once we receive the payment from the insurance company, if there's anything left over, then we will reimburse you. And then, it's possible they will pay a little less. We just don't know until we submit it to them.
I think the key is, and we've said this since day one when we had our team orientation and training, transparency.
Yeah.
We have to be very transparent, because if we, if somebody cons someone to come in and be like, yeah, it's going to be fine, it's not going to be that much more, and then turns out their insurance reimbursement kind of stinks because their insurance company or their employer did not give them good benefits. Well, it's not, they're not going to blame the insurance company. They're going to blame us for not, getting good estimates. So we always do strive for transparency and using very direct words. So we will always say, we are an out-of-network provider. We don't want there to be any misunderstanding of that. And it doesn't have to be a scary thing to say. You just want to say it in a positive way, and say we'll fight tooth and nail for every, to maximize your benefits. And
then we'll say, would you like to, I'm happy to look into that, now for you. Or would you like to book an appointment now? Or would you like to give you an estimate and then you can decide? And so then, and it's interesting because some people will just say, oh, okay, that's fine. So there's a lot of possibilities. They could say, okay, yeah, that's fine, but they don't necessarily really understand. And then you go back to them, and then later on it's oh wait, you're out of network. It is confusing. I mean, I get confused as someone, in my own life with insurance. So they may not have really understood, or they'll just say, oh, I'm not really interested, or and that's it, or they'll say, or they'll just be totally good with it. And I have noticed that recently over time, I feel like we have more people saying, oh, okay, and I think it is because our reputation is finally starting to grow. So it's not just who is this? I don't think so. But now that they're hearing it,
I want to come to Voorhees Pediatric Dentistry, and
yeah.
I really want to make it work. Yeah.
And that goes back
I
to
have noticed that.
And I think that's so key there, because again, goes back to everything that you're doing, planting those seeds over the last year, even year and a half, if you count pre opening too. But all those seeds you've been watering, right? The reputation you've been building, the relationships you've been creating, the experiences you've been providing. Now that's become a conversion tool, right? Where it's not as maybe big of a deal to say, you know what, you're an out-of-network provider, but I see your Google reviews. I see you all over the community. You're all over Facebook and Instagram. People say amazing things. I'm okay with paying a little bit more out of pocket for my child because I know this is the right place for them. Versus if you all weren't doing those things, if you weren't in the community, doing all the marketing, if you weren't, all over Facebook, Instagram, Google, nobody has a connection to you at that point. So it's very easy for them to be like, well, I'll find a different, office then. Thank you.
And
So
certainly we still get our fair share of that. I mean, it still happens, but I have noticed the decrease. And like I said earlier, sometimes we'll see, then a couple of months later, somebody will kind of come back to us and say, oh, actually, we decided that we want to give you a shot. So it's interesting how that happens.
At the beginning, did you ever run into, and I ask this because a lot of offices struggle with this, and I know because I listen to the calls. Hey, I want to make an appointment for my kids. I've got Blue Cross, Blue Shield insurance. Do you guys take my insurance? And then did you ever run into the situation where somebody would say, no, we don't. Sorry, we're out of network, and then that's it. And say, okay, bye. And if so, how did you? Did you catch it, monitoring it, use it as a training opportunity? Because the key there is you explain things. Yes, we're out of network, you're transparent, but you explain that you could still submit to insurance and all of that. But so many offices just say, no, we're not. Well, at that point, nothing happens there. So I don't know. Did you run into that at all? If so, how did you overcome it? Because again, that's not the way you all handle it.
Yeah, I mean, we're fully out of network. So I feel like that might happen more in an office where it's mixed, you're in network with some, out of network with others, and they're another office team might just be like, I'm not going to waste my mind power, my brain power trying to sway someone who's out of network. But that's our whole wheelhouse is we are out of network with all insurances, so we kind of treat everyone equally. We do.
I mean, I will say, I don't know if it's okay to, there are some insurances that don't accept assignment of benefits. And that's been a hard one because they will send the check to the patient rather than to us. So for those, we have to take the full cost of the appointment up front. And that's the hardest one. And that's the one where we lose most people in. So we're still like, oh, what do we do? Do we just say we'll put a credit card on file? How do we handle this? That I think has been one of our biggest pain points of this one particular insurance that just does it, that they just pay the customer, they just pay the patients, and so we don't know what the reimbursement is, and so that's difficult. I'm not sure. But now I lost the question. Now, sorry.
No, but it was just how you're handling that and that question, and not just turning people away, because I get it, right? It's people, you maybe have talked to so many people, if you're on a network, you don't even want to, that some offices don't even want to deal with it. But some of those patients, though, we've also seen who have been out of network have turned into some of the best patients for these practices and huge referral sources. And so by just sending people away and saying, no, we're not, and that's it, it's you could really be hurting a lot of things, future growth for the practice. And it's just, I mean, there's so much we could talk about with that. I know, people struggle with it a lot.
Well, sometimes, we have had people who ultimately end up not coming, but they will say, but I thank you so much for your help and for, looking into everything from, so we definitely see that as well. And even though we're sad that they can't come, we're still happy that they had came away with a positive experience with the team. And
because that still is a seed. They may not come to us, they may come to us in a year, or they might tell their neighbor.
I think one thing that is tricky with the out of network is that everybody has a different plan. So we've had people who their I think I saw once where once they got their reimbursement, some people, it only ended up being $1 or $5 copay on their behalf. And so, but you just don't know. And so sometimes I wonder, if people talk and they say, oh, like they don't take my insurance, or like I had to pay so much. And it's like, well, not every plan is different. So, people might kind of like, and sometimes we'll see even in a Facebook group, somebody will say, oh, but they don't take insurance. And it's like, wait, hold on, there's more, and then you think, so, you just wonder like what people say outside who decide not to come, who say, oh, it's going to be hundreds of dollars. And it's like, well, that's not necessary. That's not true for everybody. Everybody has a different plan. So it's also thinking about things like that. And that's tricky too. And I would say that's something that we're still trying to figure out and fine tune.
Yeah. It's just, it's like, taking reps is, we call it a lot, where it's like a exercise or anything. So you just kind of have to do it a bunch of different times. You alter, how you communicate it. You learn how, certain insurance companies do certain things. And then you just kind of continue to dial that in. And again, you all have done a really great job, with that. And I think that's been a direct correlation to everything that you all are doing. Finally, it's paying off and starting to compound, which has been amazing to see. Now, as we're kind of moving towards the end here, you all have come so far over the last year. July was a record production month for the practice, which is amazing. Now we're going into the back end of the year, here of 2025. What's your future vision for the practice? What's your next big goal, or what's in line? Because I know you guys surely have something in mind, or a goal of some sort.
Yeah. We talk about this every day, and as recently as yesterday at 11:30 p.m. Like it never stops. But the vision with year 2 is growth with quality control. Maintaining that high quality while growing to be able to accommodate the number of patients that want to come in. It is just not possible in this day and age to be a solo doc and that's it, while having a profitable, thriving practice. So growth is a natural part of it. So one of the tangible goals probably in about 6 months, I'm thinking, is wanting to bring on a dental hygienist. Any dental hygienists in South Jersey want to reach out to Voorhees Pediatric Dentistry? We're an awesome, tight-knit team, and all the growth that is associated with that. Challenges that I anticipate is is figuring out how we're going to maintain that quality experience, because up until now, the past 14 months, everybody has seen me. I've done all the hygiene, all the exams, all the treatment, and they will always see me for exams, but cleanings will be potentially with the hygienist if they're one of the older children in the practice. So making sure I find the right new team member who believes in our philosophy and will expand on that experience. Then business wise, we have to, so we broke even at month 9 and have been mostly above break even point for business expenses every month since month 9, which has been great. I'm glad that we did that within year 1, but now we got to really go into profitability for the health of the practice. Mapping that out, that's a huge goal for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Great goals there, definitely. And congratulations on, getting into that profitability, side of things, and now really getting to scale at that. And for, again, type of practice that you all, built, you had the vision, you stuck to it, you worked hard through the ups and downs, and, now you start, again, riding some of that momentum while also, continuing to innovate, set yourself apart, and all of those things, which we know, you all will do. Last question I really have here for this kind of 1 year check-in of the Voorhees Pediatric Dentistry story is, for people listening to this and some of those who've followed your journey, I had you give a piece of advice to them on the last episode, right? kind of leading up to the opening. Now, knowing what you know, a year in to ownership and all of the ups and downs that comes along with that, what would be your maybe biggest piece of advice to someone looking at practice ownership, maybe a startup acquisition? Just kind of what's your advice to them?
Yeah, map it out, reverse engineer your vision. Start with that philosophy of how you want your patients to be treated. Be kind to yourself, and realize it's a long game. And have a good support system. And just it takes time. You gotta really believe that every day. But there will be days I think in full transparency, you have to, like, everybody who goes into a startup has to know there will be bad days, many of them, and we should not dance around that topic. And like, the more you realize it's normal for a new business owner, whether you're in dentistry or any other business, because my favorite families that come in are like the parents who like are business owners also, and they're like, I see exactly what you're doing, and that's awesome, and I know what you're going through. And then we have like, a mutual appreciation love festival, where we talk about how tough it is to start your own business. So yeah, it's important to normalize the understanding of like how difficult it's going to be. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. Sorry, Shane, did you want to say something?
No. I think that's great. I would love to hear your perspective there too, Michelle.
Yeah. Also, mental health. Just check make sure that you're making time for yourself, and don't. If you're thinking about it, I would say do it. If you really, I don't regret for a second that we're doing this, and I never did, even through the hard times. I think, again, just knowing that it takes time, and like in the beginning, we still have moments, it's always like a little bit of a gut punch when you have a cancellation or when you think you have a busy Monday and then on Sunday you see that you had 3 people cancel, and those things still happen. And it's just, you mentioned it earlier, just like to zoom out, and we can't think of every single patient that cancels or you have to look at the whole picture, and just look at the average of what's going on and see the trends. And so just don't take everything so to heart, because everything is going to be different. That's what I would always say. Yeah.
I never did that.
I would always what?
I never did that.
Oh yeah. No, and I would say to Dan, like, nothing ever stays the same. So I would say, like, you're not gonna be the same. We're not gonna be in this position next year. We're not gonna be. Everything is gonna be different. We're gonna know more. We're gonna have more patients. We're gonna, something will be different. So just recognizing that nothing is gonna stay the same, I would say, is huge.
And I just want to squeeze in, because I don't think we got to talk about Lara enough.
Oh,
Lara,
we
my
love
marketing
Lara.
case manager, part of my Crimson team. Oh my God, ray of sunshine.
Yeah.
A flower. Just like.
I wish she lived closer so I could be best friends with her.
And we may get to meet in person apparently in the next year when she's traveling for for that conference you mentioned. And you have a great team,
and you are
working
great
with
too.
you, Shane. Yeah, well, it's a reflection on you that you have such a wonderful person, and then also, like, there are like, we've always had the same person working with us for the past year. It never changes. So thank you, Crimson, for being the best marketing agency out there.
That's right.
Well, you have no idea that I'll go into my weekend, riding high off of that, and I know Laura will as well. I'll be sharing that with her because it means a lot. It really does. And working with great people, like yourself, and just the things that you're doing it right is the way that we say it is. You're building a business the right way, and just cannot say enough how proud I am and amazed I am of what you all have done and accomplished in such a short amount of time. And the friendship I feel like that we've developed, even though we don't get to speak to each other as frequently now as you do with like Laura, but I still see both of you as friends and just wonderful people for us to work with. And I just we're so pumped for it. But I do think that this is how I lure people in, because we're still recording here. We're gonna have you on again and kind of go through with that next step once you bring on the hygienist and those type of things. I think that would be a cool little check-in, because again, everybody's really I think been captivated by the story and the transparency you've provided. So just want to thank you again, and keep crushing it, guys. You're doing great.
All right. We're going to compare in the next episode where the gray is on the side of my head.
Well,
that's all part of the normal evolution of a business owner.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Shane. This was really fun.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Awesome.